Hello, everyone. We are Small Group 21. My name is Grace.
I'm Sabrina.
Aaliyah.
I'm Bijan.
And today we will be talking about the leadership failure on behalf of United Airlines and their 2017 fiasco. So in order to set the scene, these are the main goals of our presentation. We will first explain and discuss the 2017 United Airlines fiasco that occurred after a passenger was forcibly dragged out of an overbooked flight. We will then recount how both the public and the CEO responded to the situation. Next, we will elaborate on how this represents a total leadership failure on the behalf of United. And lastly, we will highlight what United and other leaders can learn from this failure. So first, I will start out by explaining the situation in detail. On April 9th, 2017, David Dow, a 69-year-old Vietnamese American physician from Kentucky, was injured while being dragged out of an overbooked United Airlines flight. This flight was going from Chicago to Louisville, and I wanted to show you this video because the incident kind of speaks for itself and it'll help you better understand the situation.
Hey, come on. Come on.
So as you can see, this was a pretty brutal situation. And to explain it further, the staff needed 4 passengers to get off the plane in exchange for travel vouchers. And this is where it becomes kind of a gray area because other passengers who were on the flight say that Dow and his wife initially volunteered to get off the plane. But once he heard that the next plane wouldn't be arriving to Kentucky until the next day, he changed his mind because he had physicians to see the next morning. However, other sources say that Dow was selected at random by airline staff and refused to leave. So further, security officers then tried to make him leave despite these pleas to stay and explanations of why he didn't want to get off the plane. Eventually, they became aggressive and grabbed him and dragged him through the narrow aisle. And obviously, this whole ordeal was caught on video in which Dow hit his head on an armrest and was seen with blood streaming down his face. So in an attempt to protect United, airline spokesperson Charlie Hobart wrote this off as an involuntary deboarding situation. He claimed that the 2 officers tried to calmly talk Dow out of his seat before the 3rd officer approached him aggressively, which then Dow continued to resist until the officer grabbed him. And this officer was later put on leave pending an investigation. So this shows how there was clearly already something wrong and this was not standard procedure. Later, the Chicago Department of Aviation refused to support the officers in question, stating that the incident was not in accordance with our standard operating procedures, and the actions of the aviation security officer are obviously not condoned by the department. So this shows how the situation was already being publicly looked down upon, especially by large corporations such as this one. And then later, United CEO Oscar Munoz offered a pretty weak apology. And he lightly addressed the situation as United simply reaccommodating customers. He definitely sided with the airline staff by claiming that our employees followed established procedures for dealing with situations like this, and officers were unable to gain his cooperation and physically moved him from the flight as he continued to resist. So here he's really kind of framing the bloody situation in a rather dilute manner and further invigorated the public, especially those who witnessed the incident on the plane. And this leads into our next section, how the public and United responded to the fiasco.
Correspondingly, the video of United Airlines altercation came with public outcry. Next in this section, I'll be covering the public's response to the incident. First, after the viral video made shockwaves, it actually landed in US Congress. Senators Al Franken and Maggie Hassan, along with many of their colleagues, sent a demanding letter to United Airlines CEO Oscar Munoz to provide much more in-depth account of the incident along with their boarding policy. According to the Washington Federal Information, the letter states as follows. We are deeply concerned by a recent incident aboard Flight 3411 in which United Airlines passenger was forcibly removed from a flight from Chicago, Illinois to Louisville, Kentucky, to instead accommodate United Airlines personnel. The Transportation Security Administration and United Airlines cleared the passenger to fly, and he trusted that he would travel on that flight in exchange for purchase of his ticket. While it is common practice for commercial airlines to sell more tickets than they are physical seats on an aircraft to account for potential no-show passengers, overselling tickets can leave severe consequences for the traveling public. Second, the Congressional Asian Pacific Caucuses viewed the video as well and was disturbed how Dr. Dow was removed from the plane. They too demanded the CEO, Oscar Munoz, to see why they did what they did, and they demanded the Department of Transportation to conduct an investigation, into the matter. So third, Oscar Munoz, the United Airlines CEO, he stood by the UA flight crew, and he firmly believed that they followed UA policies rather than siding with and apologizing to the victim. In addition, none of the employees were reprimanded nor terminated over the incidents. So finally, the public found the actions of United Airlines to be reprehensible and stated that a number of hashtags online, for example, hashtag boycott United Airlines, hashtag new United Airlines mottos, and finally, hashtag fly the friendly skies. Basically, they're mocking the company's slogan. So next, Bijan will go over on how the United Airlines fiasco is a leadership failure.
Thank you, Sabrina. So in order to know what makes this a leadership failure, we should know what makes a leader successful. So I've kind of broke it down into 6 points that kind of relate to this topic here. So number 1 is acting strategically. Number 2 is being an effective communicator. Number 3, being accountable and responsible. Number 4 is having a vision for the future. Number 5 is managing complexity. And number 6, creating lasting relationships. So based on what we've just heard, we can see that Oscar Munoz, we can see that he was not acting strategically when he gave out his first initial response to the incident. He was not being an effective communicator because he did not communicate empathy to the passenger nor to the other passengers that witnessed this event right here, because you can see through the video that a lot of people were grotesque about what had happened. And so he was not accountable or responsible for that, which kind of leads into the culture of United. So if that incident had not gotten the PR it got, then it would probably be a normal routine for that company. And so that would mean that he's lacking a vision for the future, because he's not thinking about stakeholders. He's not thinking about people, future members or current members of United, but he was just kind of saving face and saying, United is not at fault for this. So which kind of leads to number 5, which he's like not doing a very good job of managing the complexity of the issue at hand, because we can see that even though he sides with United and it kind of looks like, my company is not at fault, it's kind of a backslap to the face to the community who uses United. And it's also like kind of ammunition for competitors, because then they can kind of attack them and say that, they don't have empathy. They don't really care about customer service. All they care is about the company. And so it kind of goes into the last point, where creating lasting relationships. From this incident, their flight attendance has dropped drastically. They are like ranked number 8 or 9 in flights now, because nobody wants to go fly United. Nobody wants to have that experience. And so this was what made this a leadership failure. So Aaliyah will go into the next section.
Okay. So United Airlines can learn many things from this fiasco. The first thing is that customer service is absolutely everything. One bad call or mistake that dismisses the customer can totally ruin the reputation. Munoz did this when he blamed Dow and sided with his staff, who publicly manhandled an innocent passenger. They could also learn that if they would have initially taken responsibility and vowed to do something to prove they're taking it seriously, for example, firing the employees involved, their reputation wouldn't have taken as hard as a hit. So now when you hear backlash about United, you know, like, well, you know, United, it's this is why it's so important to be quick to take responsibility and respect the customer. Obviously, they could learn not to overbook their flights, and in the case that that does happen, to offer to completely compensate passengers and take care of absolutely everything they need in order to avoid an aggressive removal of passengers. Lastly, they could learn to be completely transparent and show empathy from the start. United found this out the hard way, which is why they released a second response after receiving criticism from the first one. The second response was a lot more serious and empathetic. For example, they learned from this in March 2018 when a puppy died aboard a United plane after a flight attendant instructed a passenger to place the dog's carrier in an overhead bin. The airline's first statement said it took full responsibility and was deeply sorry for the tragic accident. So the aftermath, United lost over $500 million in stock. They promised not to require law enforcement to remove passengers from overbooked flights unless there is a safety or security issue. The passengers' odds of being bumped involuntarily fell nearly 60% between April and December, and voluntary bumps fell nearly 40%. United created a maximum payout of $10,000 for bumped passenger volunteers. They also released the statement, Flight 3411 was a defining moment for our United family, and it is our responsibility and our mission to make sure we all learn from this experience. The changes we have implemented are designed to better serve our customers and empower our employees. We know we have more to do to become a great airline, which is why we are continuing to look at ways to improve. And last year, or the year after the fiasco in 2019, United ranked 8th among the 12 carriers included in the airline quality rating and annual report tracking factors, including how frequently airlines involuntarily bump passengers, mishandle bags, arrive on time, and field customer complaints.
All right, thanks, Leah. So we're gonna go to section 4 now.
So how could United and the CEO's leadership be improved? United and the CEO's leadership could definitely be improved if the CEO were to take a more empathetic tone, like I said previously, and act as if the incident happened to him. How would he want the CEO of United to respond to him, given he was the passenger dragged out with blood running down his face? The media is not forgiving, so it's super important to be level and completely transparent with the public when responding to these types of widespread fiascos. The CEO could also teach compassion and responsibility to his staff to prevent these types of things from happening in the first place, and to teach responsibility. And then informed decision making is very vital when it comes to issues like these, because it's best to be preventative rather than risk the reputation of the company. Last, be quick to apologize. It's super important to preserve the overall branding of the company.
Cool, thank you, Leah. So in conclusion, United Airlines CEO Oscar Munoz failed to act strategically by mishandling the public relationship sector of his company. He did not acknowledge that United was at fault for this incident and failed to apologize to David Dow and other passengers on board, which leads to the leadership failure at hand. And also, to recap, the company loses over $500 million in stock after this happens. And so this mishap continues to haunt United Airlines as customer base has drastically dwindled. We can see that they are number 8 and still dropping in customer satisfaction. And so the way the CEO could have responded would have been like in a more empathetic manner that would not only apologize to the victim, but also reprimand those employees who did not express restraint and empathy. The removal process of the passenger. This concludes our video. Thank you so much for watching. We all hope that you enjoyed it.